Hey guys, welcome to TGS. I was kind of hesitant to do this because politics is a great divider, but with an upcoming election, it's also very important that those who can vote do vote and do so in the full knowledge of what they're doing. So for this video, we're going to look at how the three main parties actually view hunting, shooting, conservation, and the countryside in their manifestos, even though their manifestos may not be 100% true, potentially. But we're not going to look at wider party politics, so I do forgive any accidental slurs that come out of my mouth over the course of this video. And we're going to kick off with Labour and what they intend to do with the countryside, hunting, and so on and so forth. The biggest thing that they've said, and it's currently all over the news, is that they want to plant 2 billion trees by 2040. And tree planting is something that you'll see across all three manifestos, because apparently that is green. What Labour put in that's slightly nicer than everyone else is they've put in that they want to do a mixture of forestry and native woodland species, which is nice. So perhaps they might actually think about what they're putting in, because just planting trees for trees' sake isn't really good for anybody, I think, as we'll all be aware. Wonder if they'll plant them for shooting purposes. You know, nice rough edges, nice hollow middles, good flushing points. I doubt it. And I wonder what the incentives will be upon that. They will fully fund the Environment Agency and fund upstream river management, which is good because this links to the fact that they want to spend 5.6 billion on flood defences, which is quite interesting, really. Obviously, flooding is a major issue at the moment. No one wants to belittle that. However, it'll be very interesting to see where they spend that money and how they spend that money and when they spend that money. Can't take anything away from it. I expect they'll pin it on the grouse moors being their fault, but in reality, changes in agriculture, the landscape, and river management are generally to blame there. And the fact they keep building new builds on floodplains, which doesn't help in the slightest. Labour would like to create new national parks. They would like to create more protected areas, SSIs, that kind of thing. They also want to guard the current ones and create important linkages and corridors to join up all of these nature reserves and important habitats, whilst also ensuring that people can enjoy them. We all know that there's certain nature reserves where they do not do pest control that could be significantly more biodiverse and rich in nature than they are. We also know some that are just completely pointless, but are called nature reserves for the sake of the name. We also know SSIs that are not perhaps as good as they could be for lack of management. So it's going to be very interesting to see how perhaps they envisage that, although I cannot believe that they'll do it with any intensity of management or quality of management in mind. It's probably just going to be more areas that people can run their dogs and destroy valuable habitat, but for the sake of appeasing public happiness, more national parks it is, right? They want to prohibit fox hunting. I think every party is much the same as that. Nobody ever wants to repeal that act. It's going to be such an unpopular thing to want to do. And they would like to end the cull of badgers, to end the badger cull. I have my thoughts on that. I'm going to leave it out there though, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. They would like to end the badger cull. Labour would like to prohibit the sale of snares and glue traps. A snare is just a holding device at the end of the day, and correctly used, I don't see a problem there. I think if they put a licensing system in place to train people to use them and to require a license to use snares, that would be better and would stop willy-nilly usage perhaps, or at least guard those who do it, because they're a very important tool for the control of foxes. I think we all agree on that. Labour would also like to boost police resources to tackle rural and wildlife crime. 100% behind that. I think everybody's kind of put that in the manifesto. Whether they see it through or not is another thing, but very interesting. As long as the wildlife crime and the rural crime they're talking about is actual wildlife crime. You know, antis, terrorists terrorising us in our own homes for living in the countryside. I don't anymore, but I have done in the past. And being scared that somebody might break into your house in the night, break into your yard, break into your stock, steal your things, course hares in your land, steal deer, shoot deer, poach deer. These are wildlife crimes that are obviously much more concern to us as a community than anything else, and not just, you know, perhaps looking after the other side. But again, it very much depends on their view behind the thing and how they manage the laws at the time. The scariest thing that Labour would like to do is they released something a little while ago this year actually called Land for the Many. Land for the Many is a document that essentially states their plan for the UK. They feel that private ownership of certain parts of the UK should not be so, and they'd like to change the way that things are owned and run. One of the things they'd like to do is open up access, the right to roam across all uncultivated agricultural land and water. I genuinely feel like it's probably one of the most terrible ideas ever. It's only going to affect a very small amount of people who positively, but it's going to affect some people very negatively as well. And as shooting folk, I genuinely feel like it's a bad thing for us. But you can make your own mind up on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. They'd also like to change the planning system to cover major agriculture and forestry decisions. And perhaps I can get behind that a little bit, as long as it's not too coercive. And in fact, it works perfectly at the moment, so why not just keep it as it is? If someone wants to plant a new wood, let them plant a new wood. If someone wants to cut down some forestry, let them cut down some forestry. Can you imagine applying for, permission to your local council to chop down some forestry you planted? I mean, it's bad enough with certain tree protection orders and stuff as it is, really. But again, that's that, really. And finally, they would like to ban the importation of hunting trophies from endangered species, certain endangered species. Which isn't an argument I would like to get into now, but I would like to outline actually that that's not a great thing. Because there's already laws in place to protect these species, so that if you bring it into the country, you already need to bring your CITES permit and all these other things that say that you shot it legally. And if you don't, guess what? It's illegal. So actually there's a lot in place at the moment. There's a huge amount of pandering to public choice and public opinion in here, and that's obviously what political parties have to do. However, as the minority, once again, the shooting, farming, countryside community perhaps hasn't been overlooked massively, but isn't the main target of these things, and I think you'll probably agree with that. Anyway, moving on to the Conservative Party. Well, they've changed a little bit. I promised not to get too political, actually, did I? But they're going to invest $4 billion in flood defences, as opposed to $5.6 billion. That's going to be great. Looking after floods is a really good thing. They have taken away their old statement of offering a repeal of the Hunting Act in the sense they don't intend any change. It's a good popular move for them. So they want to win the election, right? Not that they've ever followed through on that promise in the past. So making no change to the Hunting Act is going to remain no changes to the Hunting Act. They also would like to look into the ban of hunting import and export of hunting trophies. We just covered that, but theirs is actually slightly more extensive than others. This all boils down to a guy called Zach Goldsmith, who is the Minister of State for EFRA, and he, in his previous life, was a animal rights activist. He's a believer in direct action and a supporter of animal rights extremism. So I ain't gonna knock him out for having morals. However, for those of you who would have watched that parliamentary debate that they had, the opener for the discussion on it, it's clear that not many of them really truly understand. And in all honesty, if this gets through, it will kill deer stalking in this country as a commercial activity. It will kill highland stalking, a lot of rural highland communities that depend on this. It will kill them. There's always a workaround, but it is proven to be good management from both the import and export. I don't even want to discuss it. I don't even want to discuss it. It just upsets me. But just beware that the Conservative government that perhaps used to be very pro-countryside and pro-country sports is certainly less so in this manifesto. This could be partially because Boris Johnson, once a keen shooting man himself, at the age of 55 has taken on a 31-year-old girlfriend, that being Carrie Simmons, who is an anti-animal cruelty activist and campaigner. And again, nobody likes animal cruelty, but she is also perhaps anti-certain things that could be anti-science. Nobody wants to be anti-science today. Sorry, moving on. What the Conservatives do want to do is bring into place something called the Office of Environmental Protection, a sort of third-party board to scrutinise government activity and public activity on land to make sure everyone's legal, intelligent, and sensible with what they're doing in the law, and so what the government's doing with making laws and what the people are doing in enacting it. This body will have the ability to take both the government and people to court over breaking certain countryside environmental laws. As long as they're taking the really bad guys to the court and not the little man who's broken a very small rule, let's look at that as good. As long as they're taking the government to court when they're breaking rules that they shouldn't be doing, and taking large companies for court if they're polluting and destroying the environment, that I'm behind. But again, these manifestos only have very, very sweeping statements in very small sentences. So whether that even comes off, who knows? Although that has been in place up until the point they called a general election, so it's very likely going to go through. What form it takes, time will only tell. They state that we will invest in nature. They want to plant 75,000 hectares of trees and create some giant Northumberland forest. Very similar in line to the Labour thing. Planting trees is a political hotbed at the moment with climate change and planting trees and being carbon neutral and all this kind of thing being extremely positive and public. They're looking to make that a clean, green way to the future. That's all right, I suppose. They also want to set up international partnerships in the future or soon to tackle international forest deforestation, climate change and environmental issues. I can see none of this is bad, but again, how they enact it is always going to be the thing, isn't it? Is they could get along with the countryside as a community, and actually there's a lot of things that we'd probably get behind, but more than likely they'll do it their own way and we'll be stuck with the result. They state that they will crack down on the waste and carelessness that destroys the environment. There will be huge crimes for fly tipping, littering, and, general miswaste. Pretty much everyone wants to ban the export of plastics, which is great to be burnt in other countries and actually offloading a problem to other people. They do care about the environment as a whole, which is probably great. However, none of them seem to care for trophy hunting, hunting, shooting, or practical conservation, as we like to call it, planting of trees for a reason, and the utilisation of the environment in a way that we do, which is great. Finally, the Liberal Democrats. Well, interestingly, the Liberal Democrats actually don't oppose trophy hunting the same ilk and strength that these other guys do. What they want to do is ban the import of hunting trophies where no benefit to the environment has been shown, or no benefit to conservation has been shown. Yeah, I can get behind that because actually, yes, it may be hard to prove, so it depends, obviously, you never trust the government not to sort of screw you on the technicality, but that should be quite an easy thing to do, right? These animals would not be there if we did not hunt them, hence its positive environment. So that's not awful. They want to do a ban on caged hens. There's a lot of people who can get behind that. Again, the size of the cage and the condition the birds are kept in could be different. The laying stock of partridges, the sort of laying cages for partridges, will they fall inside it? Who knows? They would like to ban the sale of real fur. I mean, that's a little bit crazy, given that, in my humble opinion, and that of some science, it costs less for the environment to produce a real fur than a fake plastic one. Perhaps that's worth mentioning. They want to plant 60 million trees. Again, tree planting is way up there. They want to enshrine the principle of animal sentience, as do the Conservatives actually, which is kind of strange. It's not strange, it's pandering to public opinion and propaganda, which is great. And I do believe there is a certain level of sentience with animals. However, a long time ago, we did a video with Karina where we went up to Wales, and she, with a psychology degree, talked about how we have an increased level of sentience over just about every other animal on the planet because we have the ability to have an internal monologue and a conversation with ourselves. We do things for no reason as opposed to direct evolutionary reasons. But animal sentience is something that I'm not an expert in, so we can leave that one out, I guess. Because clearly the government thinks that animals deserve sentience enshrined in law. The Liberal Democrats would like to develop a safe, humane and effective way of controlling bovine TB. I would argue that we already have that with the badger cull. However, clearly further investment in this very simple issue of just shooting a few badgers, not instead of wiping out, reducing the badger population, is a contentious issue, isn't it? They're a beautiful creature and people don't like them being dead. They would like to minimise the use of animals in scientific experiments. They would also like to increase the sentencing for animal cruelty. I think increasing sentences for animal cruelties is not necessarily a bad thing, depending on where those boundaries lie. I promise not to get too introverted on this, it's just a factual thing. So this is literally where I'm going to stop, guys. Obviously there's some massive wider party politics going on there, and certainly all of these three major parties are significantly more left-leaning than they have been in the past. So for the countryside, which is widely more conservative, it's not going to be an easy one to vote for, seeing as out of all those three manifestos, the three major parties, none of them are really great for shooting. We've got a big fight ahead of us, perhaps after this general election, until the next one, to increase our popularity and our voting sway and the care that other people have about us in the world. But now you know some facts. I can't help you, and I can't give away who I'm going to vote for because, in all honesty, I still haven't figured it out. And all this research I did for this video hasn't helped me decide. But at least now you know that everyone hates us. Take care, goodbye, it's been brilliant, and we'll see you next time.